Hello and welcome to yet another video, and in this video I would like to talk about this camera right here. It's the Panasonic G7, and if you're in Germany it's the G70. But this camera, despite the fact that this camera has been out for a while, I'd like to talk about this camera still, but more into the photography aspect of this camera, at least from what I think and how I've been using it, because I haven't really seen a lot of people posting videos about the photography side of this camera, but rather about the video side of this camera for YouTube filmmaking and everything like that, and I just feel the urge to also share my thoughts on the photography side of this camera. Yes, 2.5 years ago or 2 years ago I made a video about this camera as well, covering the video aspect and the photography aspect of it, and what I like about it and what I didn't like about it. And yeah, I also explained that Micro Four Thirds system is not my main system. I usually shoot with full frame 5D Mark II, 5D Mark III, also with my Fuji cameras, the X-T2, X-T1, X-T20. So really Micro Four Thirds is not my favorite or go-to system of choice. But I bought, back then I bought this camera mainly for travel photography, getting snap pictures and getting pretty much travel pictures on the go, and also for YouTube filmmaking. But as you probably noticed, I haven't really been using this camera that much for any of the things that I was expecting to do. But over the past 2 or 2.5 years, I managed to use this camera both in commercial shoots, in travel shoots, in photo shoots, actually for articles, also for travel photography that I do. And this camera is actually a very, very versatile camera. That being said, it's not really like the best slice of bread for me, if I can put it that way. So let's start first with the image quality. The image quality it's nice. It's not my favorite type of image quality that I get. Sure, it's 16 megapixels, it's more than enough, but in the same time the color science of Panasonic and the limitation to me of a Micro Four Thirds sensor is really there, and it's also very, very annoying. That is why I'm also slowly going to get rid of my Micro Four Thirds system. Of course, when struggling, when I'm traveling, I struggle a lot getting shallow depth of field with this camera, whereas with bigger sensors, obviously, I am able to get better more shallow depth of field in my images when I wanted to. I feel like I don't have to put in that extra effort. So even though I have a smaller camera body to travel with, as my not even B camera but C camera, but in order to achieve that shallow depth of field that I want, that I can do with my full frame, which I shouldn't really be comparing, I need even much bigger lens in front of the camera, which defeats the whole purpose of actually having a lighter travel camera to shoot. Also, going down to skin tone, yes, I'm sure a lot of people bash on Panasonic about the skin tone, and me, I don't own the GH4 and the G9 personally, but I borrowed them and rent those cameras quite a few times, and I still find that Panasonic color science, especially when it comes to skin tone, is really bad. Whether I'm just shooting pure portraits or shooting street photography or other type of photography where human is required, I find that the skin tone is so so not accurate. And also sometimes I get magenta or purple lips or cheeks, or sometimes they're too orange or yellow, so it's kind of weird. But anyway, if you spend a lot of time in post, you can definitely fix those problems. I personally don't really spend a lot of time in post, and I don't like spending a lot of time in post. That's why I shoot with Canon as well as my main camera system, is that I don't need to spend a lot of time in post. But you know, when it comes to these things, it's all very subjective on what you find nice looking and natural looking. But yeah, anyway, moving on to operation. The operation side of this camera is actually pretty nice. I like the fact that I can choose the focusing area just by tapping on the screen here when I have my camera up to my eye, because sometimes when I'm shooting in the bright sunlight, I just look through this OVF, and I can just select the points here. That being said, when looking through the OVF, I do find that the image from the OVF is slightly more saturated than the image you find on the LCD back here. And I also find, like, this is going to be more technical and really nitpicking, that when you look through the LCD back here and you compare to the monitor of your let's say MacBook Pro or iMac, something like that, where the color is a bit more accurate, you'll find that this has some sort of magenta cast to the display, and you don't really notice that when you're shooting out there in the field. But if you're shooting like using a third-party app to transfer images when doing photo shoot from your camera over to your computer, you can notice the difference seeing the images. Now, I'm aware that most of you are not going to be using it that way like I do when I do with photo shoots, because I like to also have a big screen to see what I'm photographing as my final results on a big screen rather than just on a tiny screen like this when I'm doing photo shoots, because that is actually convenient and it actually helped me enormously. But I'm aware, as I said, like, not very many people are going to be using that feature with a third-party app, because you still have to buy the third-party app. But yeah, that can be annoying if you're doing something similar to me like that. Also, like, the handling is really nice. You can really handle this camera for a long time. For the grip, it's not the most comfortable grip in the world, but it's really nice and comfortable for the weight and the size of this camera and the type of lenses you're going to be mounting on this camera. Going back to the autofocusing system, Panasonic made a claim since the GH4 that, you know, they have the world's fastest focusing system, but it seems like every manufacturer nowadays kind of make that statement. Even Canon EOS R, when it came out, it said like it had the world's fastest autofocusing system, which, even though I'm a Canon fanboy and I'm not biased towards them or anything, I still think it's not the fastest. Is it fast enough for what I would do? Yes, it's fast enough for what I would do. But comparing other focusing system to this camera's focusing system is, I guess, it's also to do with the technology of the Micro Four Thirds sensor in general inside, is that there's a difference between fast autofocusing system and accurate autofocusing system. For something like, for example, my Canon 5D Mark II, or even the Canon EOS R, even though they're not that fast anymore compared to all the latest mirrorless cameras that's coming out nowadays, but I know that I can always, or at least 95% of the time, get my autofocus sharp right on the object that I want to focus on. Whereas with this camera, a lot of times it confirms that it is in focus, but it can be like a hair out of focus. To many people who just post their images on like social network might not notice the difference, but to someone who use images sometimes for professional work, or a lot of times for professional work, will notice the difference in like one of those images that's just a hair, like missed by a hair, or like really sharp images. Now, it doesn't really matter that much in video, because in video it's only like, if you're shooting 4K, that's only 8 megapixels, versus when you're shooting stills images, it's 16 megapixels. So it's double the resolution essentially. So you will notice the difference a bit more. And what makes it worse is that at nighttime, because of the sensor size, how small it is, the noise is more visible when you use higher ISO, obviously, science, but it's even more noticeable on the Micro Four Thirds sensor, and the sensor autofocusing system kind of picks that up and sometimes confirm it's in focus, but that's just due to like the influence of the noise there, even though the scene is completely out of focus. So that's something that I'm also not really happy about, but I can live with, because it's not my A or B camera, it's my C camera. So yeah, to sum everything up, the operationing of this camera is actually very nice for photography, whether you're doing stills, landscape, or to a certain extent fast moving object, but not too fast. This camera is a very capable camera that actually offers you a lot of features like wireless shooting, wireless transferring images, so that you can work on your images right away, which is nice if you're traveling, because sometimes you don't have the time to, you know, take the card out or import the images onto the computer and everything. You just need to wirelessly transfer it to your iPad, your phone, whatever, and then work with the Lightroom app or whatever software you're working with, just to transfer the images and work on them and then deliver like quick samples to your clients. So this camera is really great for that. And also if you just need to post it on Instagram or whatever, this camera is also really nice for that. I took some of my favorite images with this camera, with even the earlier kit lens, and the files from this camera is not as bad as I say it to be, but when it's bad, it's really bad. But you still can make really nice pictures with this camera, and I have made some really nice pictures that I like with this camera before. That being said, I rarely use this camera though, being a C camera. I thought I would have used it more than I would have when I first got it, but since I don't really like the color science and the time that I spent to edit like the images and the video on this camera to at least make it look more natural, if not how I want it to be, it's really long time to get it right. Especially if you're coming from like a Fuji and Canon background, this is really suffering. And I'm not sure about the GH5S and the GH5 and the newer cameras, but at least from what I tried with the GH4 and the G9, the color is still way off. I saw some image samples of the GH5 online that I've downloaded as raw files with Skintone and everything. It is a huge improvement over something like this, but it's not comparable, nowhere close to Fuji and Canon. That being said, something like this is also very subjective. So yeah, just take it as a grain of salt. But anyway, this video is getting a bit too long. I'd like to end it here. I know it's still somewhat vague, but I just really like to talk about the still side of this camera, and I hope you find this video somewhat useful. This camera is still a great camera overall, and you still can do a lot of things with this camera. It's just not the best camera for photography, especially in this price range as well, when you have something like the Canon M50. Well, in some part of the world, Canon M50 is really overpriced, but some part of the world, it's really cheap, and sometimes cheaper than this camera still. So yeah, and also when you also have something like the A6000, if you buy that used, it's even cheaper and it delivers better image quality than this camera, in my opinion. But yeah, just I hope you find this video useful somehow. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or if you have any suggestions, advice, anything to comment, please leave them down below. And if you need a free photography guidebook, like if you're an absolute beginner, I do have that book on my website. I'll link it down in the description below. Feel free to download it, and yeah, have a nice time and have fun shooting. Bye.